I have to preface this story, as this story doesn't have a conclusive ending. Instead, it's a story about mystery and the unknown. I'd like to hear your guys' answers. It takes place when I was a teenager. It was the summer, and I was staying at my grandparents' house. One night, my cousin and I got really bored of playing Black Ops 2 Zombies and asked to drive the four-wheeler and the dirt bike around. We did so, but before leaving and heading out into the Midwest country, we grabbed some fishing poles. My cousin was from this little tiny town, and so I followed him thinking that he had the best and most secret fishing spot. Now I didn't have my license to fish, so this had to be a place where no one on the road could see us. My cousin's driving the dirt bike, and I take the four-wheeler, and we set out into the woods. My cousin was really making this spot sound like a good hangout and really hyping it up. My cousin stops on the dirt bike and parks it at the spot where I stop the four-wheeler and get off as he says, "We're here." I thought, are you kidding me? As we parked on a small bridge. It was on a gravel road, so that meant not as much traffic, and there was a small river going underneath it, so it was a reliable place for fishing, I suppose. I put my faith in him, however, because he had been here multiple times and knew the spot was good. We take out our poles, our fishing poles, and cast them into the water. As time goes on, we talk about normal teenager things and secretly anticipate one of our rods to start shaking. Nothing happens the whole night. I didn't know if it was just bad luck or something else, but neither of us got anything. It felt like forever had passed, so I asked my cousin what time it was, and he tells me to take his rod, his fishing rod, and he'll go to the dirt bike where he put his phone in a little fanny pack. I heard him zip this pack and tell me it was 11:15 p.m. Then he puts it back and zips the packet with his phone in it. I give him back his fishing pole and kinda wish I had said something like, "Geez, it's getting late, huh?" I didn't really want to be out there any longer. I sit there in silence though, for what felt like a couple seconds, and then snap out of it telling my cousin, "Hey, I think we should get back, it's getting kinda late." My cousin thankfully agreed, and said we should probably get back before midnight. I go back to the four-wheeler with my fishing pole, and my cousin goes back to the dirt bike to secure his own. All of a sudden, we hear a loud splash in the water under the bridge, and we instantly make eye contact. With our eyes wide, we look towards the water. I go to the edge of the bridge to try to look under it, but it's pitch black. Just then, my cousin's phone starts randomly playing music, "Sympathy for the Devil." My cousin and I go to the edge of the bridge to try to look under it, but it's pitch black. Just then, my cousin's phone starts playing randomly, "Sympathy for the Devil." How did his phone just turn on and start playing music? It was in the fanny pack and zipped up. When my cousin took his phone out to turn the music off, he had the most horrified look on his face. I asked him what was wrong, and he just turned his phone toward me. The clock said 2:30 a.m. It was just 11:15. How did over 3 hours just pass in seconds? He also had a dozen missed phone calls from our grandparents. That's when we just got on our rides and raced home. Thankfully we made it safe, but were we safe from 11:15 to 2:30? Welcome back to part 2 of my 3-part horror story. In the past, you learned about when I was in community college and taking a night class in central Iowa. There was a sketchy character in the class that never showed his face and always had his hood up. On the last day of this class, the sketchy guy left before everyone. Around 2 hours later, I walk out and see him walking right next to me. When I see him, I immediately thought to myself, I thought he finished the final 2 hours ago. It was odd that he started walking at the same exact speed as me too, and in the same direction. I'm in my fight or flight mode at this point. But since I didn't know if the guy had a weapon or something, I wasn't going to risk it and just thought it was best to get to my car as fast as possible. As we're both walking, I hear something truly haunting. He starts to whistle this melody that just felt eerie and very out of place. I thought maybe it was just to make him seem like he was minding his own business or something. I then realized that that was stupid to think, since it was pitch black out and there was nobody around, meaning that he was just taunting me with his creepy whistle. Eventually the god-awful whistle stops, and at first I thought it was a relief until I looked over and he's gone. This too would probably make you think I was somewhat relieved, but if he isn't there, then where is he? I see this as my opportunity to run to the car, which is about 50 yards away. I start running in kind of a slight jog as to not make too much noise and make sure things out of my bag don't fall off. As I'm running, I hear something fall on the ground. It scared me so much that I got this little hop out of me and spike of adrenaline. I look back and my bag wasn't zipped all the way, making one of my notebooks fall out, as well as a couple papers. I know, using papers in 2021? Yeah, we still use them, but not a lot. It was this little mini quiz that we did every week. As I'm going down to pick everything up, I hear the whistling again. As I look up, I dread the reality that the hooded guy could still be around me. I reach my eyes up enough to see him standing with shadows behind him, but he's illuminated by a light just above him. I say screw it and just run with whatever I had in my arms at the moment. I get even more terrified when I hear footsteps behind me. He's chasing me at this point, and with all the stuff in my arms, I didn't have good enough form to run fast enough. As I'm sprinting for my life, I see my car in the orange-lit parking lot. I sort of have this moment of relief when I see someone else is in the parking lot with their car parked right next to mine. I scream for help, and the girl in her car comes out with a worried look to come help me. I get to my car, and the girl is asking what is wrong. In between large gasps of breath, I say someone's chasing. As I look back to where I was running, no one is in sight. Just the wide open sidewalk in between buildings and occasional glimpses of light. The girl asks me if she needs to call for help, but I tell her it's fine, and I'm sorry for freaking her out. Was I imagining it? I mean, it'd probably make sense since he was out of class so early. I was also under a lot of stress given that it was finals week, and a lack of sleep definitely could have contributed to possible hallucinations. It just feels weird though. I've never hallucinated before. Why would I hallucinate now? The whole night just feels like one big blur to me now. I still don't know if I should believe it was a hallucination or if it could have been real. In the year 2000, I was going to college to become a doctor. I remember one of the first classes being anatomy. Just the plain and basic anatomy 1. In this class, we had to do the classic dissection of the cat. If you had the misfortune of doing this in your anatomy class or any other classes, then my heart goes out to you. If you haven't, well, count yourself lucky, because when you dissect a cat, your nose is assaulted with a mixture of various foul smells. Most of it are just the chemicals used to preserve the cat for dissection. To save time and resources, we had to partner up and dissect a cat together. I didn't know anyone at this university yet, and I was a little hesitant to make new friends. I just wasn't very good at it, but it was necessary for this exercise. This wasn't like a huge lecture room. It was actually like a lab-like room with a lot fewer people. There were 12 of us, and unfortunately, on the day that the class got to pick partners, I was sick. This left me with the weirdest and most socially awkward kid in the class. I was reasonably devastated, as I'd have to spend time getting to know this kid and working with him for the next couple of labs. The first time we met in the lab, I noticed that there was a dead cat on the table that was cut down the middle, in the middle of both arms and the middle of both thighs. Thinking it was the example, I thought, great, this loser and I have to make this much progress on the cat by the end of the day? Only to realize that my partner had done the whole thing on his own. I was relieved and confused at first. I looked around at all the other cats in class, and no one had more than the cut down the middle of the cat's stomach. I actually was kind of excited that my partner was some sort of genius and I wouldn't need to really try that hard. Of course I wanted to learn, but it was good to know that at least I had this cushion that was basically guaranteed not to fail. When I went and introduced myself to this kid, I told him my name and expected him to give me his, but instead he just kind of smiled and said hi. I wasn't expecting to meet a lifelong friend, so I kind of just shrugged it off and got started. While we were dissecting the cat, and by we, I mean mostly him, I made small talk with him, and he even talked a little bit too. I started to notice his odd behavior when we were dissecting one day, and I tried correcting him on something I thought he messed up on. As I was going to point towards where I thought he made a mistake, he got angry and pointed the knife at my hand. He then said, "Don't touch it. I know I've done everything right so far." He then calmed down and kind of looked down while sighing and apologizing to me. He explained that he hadn't been getting much sleep lately, and he was getting very irritated because of it. He said his lack of sleep was because of projects at home. I gave him the benefit of the doubt, but was still terrified to say anything to him the rest of the day. Throughout the whole semester, nothing else happened like that, but I did hear something from him that I absolutely didn't want to. Towards the end of the semester, we were studying for our final exam, which was to go to different trays with different cats having little flags pointing towards a muscle we had to identify. While we were studying, I asked my partner a question that I wasn't expecting an answer to, but just trying to make small talk with him. I asked him, "Why do we even have to know the body parts of a cat? It doesn't make any sense." I look over at my partner, and he looked the most tired I've ever seen him. He had circles under his eyes, and his eyelids were halfway covering his eyes. In a sort of mumble, he keeps looking at his paper and says, "It looks a lot like how humans' muscles are. Maybe that's why." Just hearing that made me cringe, as his tone made it seem like he'd seen this firsthand. Even if this is not the case, who would know that off the top of their head? I didn't care anymore, because it was towards the end of the semester, and towards the end of me and this guy's partnership. Fast forward to next semester. I'm in all new classes with better people and even making new friends. One day while walking on the campus's main hall, I see a group of students surrounding one of the TVs. It was on the news, and I could see footage of the classic crime scene you'd see on the news. The camera was pointed far away with yellow tape strung across it, and then some close-ups of the property. There was a close-up shot that did haunt me for a little bit, as it was a black body bag with someone's body being in the front yard. On the bottom read, "University student convicted of father's murder." This was a shock to everyone, as it wouldn't have most likely been our university, since it was local news and we were one of 2 universities in the state. I wish that was all I knew, however, because what I learned next truly made me rethink my whole existence. They showed the face of the murderer, and well, I think you already know where this is going. It was my lab partner from the anatomy class. I felt like I was going to get sick. especially after hearing this guy murdered his father for insurance money and then started to dissect him. I made the connection about how he knew the human's muscular system. I think it would explain him as not getting enough sleep too. However, there's another possibility that I don't want to believe, and that is that when he mentioned he had projects at home, he was losing sleep because he was dissecting his father every night while being my lab partner.